Hello, guys. How are you doing? This is Daisy Neo with you. And I just had to make this reaction video after what I saw at the arena, Hamza's Den arena. This is exactly what happens when you let Daniel Haqiqatjou speak his mind. And this reminds me what happened with Haris Sultan and how he had the debate. And Haris kept saying that all I wanted to do was just let Haqiqatjou speak. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. But after watching this, it really sort of solidified it that yes, you have to be very careful when you let a guy like Haqiqatjou, Daniel Haqiqatjou, onto a panel like the arena or the Hamza's Den. And the reason why is this next speaker, the next guest that they bring in, it makes a perfect example of what happens when you have a guy like Haqiqatjou on the panel. Now, the situation is that Hamza, we all know he's a convert, and for years he's been making videos and he's been, on speaker corners and all that. And anytime anybody says anything about slavery or sex slavery in Islam, his go-to answer is no, there's no sex slavery in Islam. There's no such thing. That slavery wasn't even a slavery. It was something else. You guys are liar. You guys are Islamophobe. And he just bullies them and quiets everybody down because of his behavior. Like, nope, there is no sex slavery in Islam, and no such thing. And all his panelists always agree with him, like, yeah, there's no sex slavery. And they try to sugarcoat a lot of things in Islam. So it always works because the whole panel is, in tune with what Hamza says. So they all just back each other up. Now, throw in a grenade like Daniel Haqiqatjou and see what happens. I'm just going to make a reaction video. This is for educational purposes. So I'm just making a reaction on it, and we're going to see what he says and make comments of his conversation. So let's see what he said. So the guest comes in and asks a question
about slavery.
Guys, the question is about slavery, and I speed up the video so that we can finish the video quickly.
Okay. Okay, it's about a verse in Surah Al-Mu'minun, verse 5 to 6.
Are you Muslim, by the way?
Are you Muslim? I'm not a Muslim. Actually, I don't have any. Okay. I don't have any religion. So okay.
Right, what surah? What surah?
Surah Al-Mu'minun. Surah 23, verse 5 to 6.
All right, 1 second.
Surah
23, 5 to 6.
Oh,
yes.
Okay, Bismillah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Successful indeed are the believers, those who humble themselves in prayer, those who avoid idle talk, those who pay alms tax, those who guard their chastity, except with their wives or their bondswomen in their possession, and for them they are free from blame. But whoever seeks beyond that are the transgressors.
Okay, so this is the one that
okay. My question is, right hand possess is actually is slave. Am I right?
No.
Just notice, this is a beautiful part. Now, he has no idea what Daniel is going to say. So right off the bat, just based on the regular script Hamza goes with, when he says right hand possesses, does that mean slave? And his answer, what is his direct answer? No. As soon as he says no, they realize that, oh, wait a second, we have Daniel Haqiqatjou on the panel. So guess what will happen now?
Concubinage.
So Hashim goes ahead and like, no, that's a captive. And Ijaz is like, oh, I mean concubine. Because they can't just use the standard narrative of what Hamza normally says. It's like, nope, there's no slavery. That right hand possesses doesn't mean what it means. But now look at Haqiqatjou smiling. It's like, yeah, not going to happen this time. So check this out.
Didn't say slave in the context of slave, you're trying to say it.
So now he backtracks. It's like, oh, no, I mean slave, not like how you're saying slave. I mean slave like how I'm saying slave, like the nice slaves, like, Muslim slaves. The slave that Islam had were all nice slaves, not the bad chattel slavery that you guys are talking about.
Captives of war, let's put it that way.
Yeah, captives of war.
Yep.
Captives of war. Okay.
Okay, so how, like slave or captive of war? See, you see how it's important to change the terminology? This is what they do. They try to always soften the words that the Quran actually has so that, the audience gets a different concept out of it. But basically, your right hand possesses basically means slaves, and Daniel Haqiqatjou is gonna basically clear it up for them. Just this is such a phenomenal talk. You gotta listen to it.
Can you guys maybe briefly explain to me what verse 5 and 6 are talking about? I mean, guarding the private parts. Is it mean sex? Is it
like, so he put it out straight away. Does that mean guard your private part means you're allowed to have sex with your wife and your concubine, as he says, or captive of war or sex slave, whatever it is? So very simple, straightforward answer. Answer is, are you allowed yes or you're allowed no? But look at the gymnastic that's going to happen now just to walk around this one subject of, is it allowed or is it not allowed?
So those who guard their chastity, except with their wives, or those bondswomen in their possession. So they don't have sex with anyone apart from the captives of war, yeah, what the right hand possesses, and all their wives. Yeah, what's your point?
So he keeps bringing like, so what's your point? Like, okay, yeah, you said it. Now, what's your point? That's Hamza's technique to distract from what the guy asked. But I like this guest. He keeps it on track.
Okay, so in these two verses, Muslim is allowed to have sex with his wife and his right hand possessed, which is a war captive.
Yeah, it's halal for, yeah. The war captive is halal for him, yes.
Yeah. War captive is halal for him. Means war captive, which means sex slave, right? But he doesn't want to use that terminology, right? On his, because for years he's been saying there's no such thing, but now he's faced with that question. He's like, okay, yeah.
Yes,
what's your point?
I got a question for you, Mr.
One second, what's Mr. Iki's point is? What's your point?
Actually, I'm curious about the problem of consent.
So the real question he's asking is, do you need consent from your war captive, your slave, to have sex with them? So that is the main. It's like, yeah, it's a war captive, but do you need the consent of the war captive to have sex with them? Because it's already established based on the ayah that you are allowed to have sex with him, with the war captive. But now he's asking, do you need the slave's consent? All right, very simple question, very direct question. And now see how they respond.
I mean, when they because I always heard some Muslims say that when they have sex with before they have sex with the war captive, they have to get the consent from the war captive.
And that's what a lot of the Muslims, when you talk on Dawah channel, they're like, no, they were slaves, but you can't do anything to the slave without their consent. So if the owner wanted to have sex with his slave, he would have to have the slave's permission. So the consent has to be given. That's all the time that the Muslims sometimes say. But here he's asking directly. That ayah doesn't say anything about consent.
Is it right?
Well, one second. You brought Surah 5:6. What's your point?
He keeps bringing, so what's your point? He said his point. He's saying, is consent allowed? And Hamza is like, no. What's your point? He's like, because they know this is a problematic verse, and they know it's all about what's going to happen. So see, instead of answering his question about consent, look where they're going to try to take it.
That's my point is about the consent. I mean, if a Muslim...
okay, but there he doesn't mention consent, so why did you bring these verses?
Because these verses shows that a believer can have sex with a war captive, right?
They say yeah, so it's basically saying it's permissible for him to have sex with this particular woman, yes. Okay.
Okay, so now my question is it consent required when the Muslim want to have sex with the war captive? Does he need to get the consent from the war captive?
Right. Are you saying is he allowed to rape her?
So they're gonna throw in, is he allowed to rape her? Because that way they bring it all the way straight to that word rape, so that it's easy to just destroy the conversation right there. Because now the whole word is thrown around it, rape. So it's like, no, they can't rape. Hey, of course, Islam doesn't allow rape, so obviously it's not rape. So this is one of the tactics to actually distract from what the conversation. His question was very straightforward. Is the consent of the slave necessary for the owner to have sex with him? But they are not addressing that claim. But now they're jumping to, is it rape? Of course it's rape. And of course everybody knows rape is not allowed in Islam, so obviously it can't be rape and all that stuff.
No. Actually, I'm still learning, so I...
No, but that is your claim. If you said that there's no consent, then you're saying that it is rape.
I'm not sure. That's why I asked the question here.
Go on,
Daniel.
go ahead.
Yeah, not necessarily. The definition.
Now, here's the Here's the Daniel Haqiqatjou special. Now, what he's going to do is, instead of answering the question about what is the consent allowed, now he's going to talk about what does consent really mean and how consent today is totally different than consent back then. And then he's going to throw in all these, what about consent of the girl in the college, and if she has to have sex with her boyfriend, she has to consent. And then nowadays, totally straw manning the thing, totally distraction, like whataboutism. Like, he's not addressing that question, and now he's trying to take it away to a different angle and try to beat a straw man about some girl going to college and what consent is, what woke culture is right now, so that he can distract from the question. Look at how beautifully he goes there.
Of consent, the definition of rape, these things are highly contested, and so now you have a definition of consent that is taught in universities, actually, because they're trying to fight the quote-unquote rape culture, and they say that in an
Was he talking about the definition of consent of right now? No, he's talking about back then for the sex slave.
During the act of sex, sorry for being very graphic here, but during the act of sex, every single change in position or touch or kiss during the act, like every time you want to do something, you need to verbally ask for consent, and you need to receive verbal yes for every single thing that you do. Otherwise, that is sexual.
And how is that relevant to what his question was? Complete straw man.
Assault, and you could be put into prison.
And just to be clear, Brother Daniel, it can't be just one yes, it has to be multiple.
And now the ijaz jumps in with another, like, yeah, make it even more convoluted.
Well, because they could change their mind after the kiss, right?
Yeah, they can any second they could change their mind, and they might not express it because they feel
threatened,
like threatened, yeah. Right? So they have to verbally express it and I guess it's conventionally thought that the woman is the one who has to express consent, but what about the guy? He also has to say.
What about the guy has to consent? And this is what woke. I mean, seriously, this is a good attempt at deflection and distraction. Or like, let's talk about the woke culture and let's not talk about the consent of the sex slave.
Say yes for every single second, and so this is the view of what constitutes real consent, meaningful consent, according to the woke definition, and what is considered rape.
I mean, when I say consent, I mean.
Now, I like the guest. The beautiful thing about the guest is he doesn't get distracted by this, like, blah, blah, blah. He's like, oh, yeah, I got you. Let's get back to my question. I appreciate him to keep it on track and bring them back to the question, because the attempt failed. They try to distract this way. The attempt failed. He's going to bring them back to the question.
The consent is like agree. Agree, like the woke captive. He said, okay, yes, I'm okay. I agree to have sex with you. I mean, the consent, yeah, like something like agreement.
Well, we can contextualize.
Now, here comes ijaz with a, let's try it again, because the Daniel Haqiqatjou distraction didn't work. Ijaz comes in, all right, let me try a different angle. Let's distract in a different way. Let's contextualize the situation.
This historically. For example, are you concerned about what happens when non-Muslim armies invade countries? You had the rape of Baghdad. I don't mean to be graphic. The rape of Berlin. You look at.
Okay, so instead of talking about the consent of the slave over there, now he's gonna, what about the rape in Baghdad? What about this country? What aboutism? Yes, we do agree the rapes in Baghdad was wrong. And if they did rape the women in a war in World War II or whatever, they was wrong. Yes, we do agree that. We do say, yes, it was wrong. And that's exactly what we're saying. Yes, and the rape of the slave woman during the time of the Prophet was wrong too. But no, you're actually shooting yourself in the foot. Yeah, you're saying, look at the non-Muslim armies that they raped. Yes, that was wrong. I thank you. So was the time of the Prophet also. It was wrong.
These things, Islam seems to provide a solution for this problem, and it manages the urges that fighting men would typically have. And so it's not as if we can simply go out there and grab a woman and claim her for the night and do whatever.
Oh, wow, Ijaz, thank you. So basically, if it's just random, grab a woman and just have sex with her, it's bad. But now, if Islam puts a systematic way of raping her or systematic way of making her a slave and then having sex with her, then that is all good, right? Wow.
I want, there's a rule and there's a process to go through with it. So for example, in a war zone, if a woman has a husband, that husband survives, then no, she can't become a captive. There are certain conditions which must be laid out. So
that is actually not, see, the thing is, Sharif and Hashim over here, they know that what he said was wrong. There are hadiths of narrations of the Sahabas that said that they captured a bunch of women whose husbands were still alive, and that since they were still alive, they were hesitant of having sex with them. So they asked the Prophet, like, can we have sex with them? Because we know their husbands are still alive, so they are not widows or anything. And the Prophet said, yeah, you can have sex with them. So what he just said was wrong. But see, even though they know this, I'm sure Daniel knows that hadith and these two, but they're not going to correct him because he's on his team. So they're just going to let it slide. Yeah, okay, all right. But that's not fair. You see, you should not. There's nobody to contest it. This guy doesn't know it, so nobody contests this. But that's how they do. They throw in a lot of information and nobody objects to it, so it just passes by as facts, even though the Sira has lots of other stories about, women of war and their husbands were still alive and all that stuff.
At the end of the day, Islam just seems to systematically address the issue as opposed to leaving it open where people can do anything for any reason, especially in a period of conflict. So how do you deal with Islam's systematic dealing with it as opposed to, let's say, Western countries not having a systematic means of approaching the assault of women during war?
Okay, so he tried his distraction. Daniel tried the distraction, didn't work. He tried to contextualize it. Let's see what are you gonna do? Well, Europe didn't have this. The Islam came up with a solution to do it. How are you gonna solve that? And the guy goes back to the question.
Actually, I'm still learning, so I don't know that much things about. But I do know about those things that you mentioned. But now I'm just curious about this. The war captive in Islam, because I always heard Muslim.
Nice. He's like, yeah, I know what you're saying, and I know that other story. But right now the question is consent of the slave woman. Beautiful. He brings it back to the question. Both of them are like, okay. Both the distractions didn't work.
Muslim said that they have to ask the consent from the war captives.
It doesn't make sense. Like, I'll just come out and say it. The captive has to consent.
Beautiful. Now Daniel Haqiqatjou is like, you know what? Consent doesn't even matter. They are war captives, man. They are property. So why would I need permission from my property to do whatever I want with them? So this is what nice thing about Daniel Haqiqatjou is. Like, he's gonna come out and say it, and everybody's like, okay, just walking on eggshell around the subject, and he'll be like, no, okay, you don't need consent from them.
It's just not meaningful. Like, this is not a meaningful thing to say. Like, it's like saying, oh, is the person who is incarcerated in prison, does he or she have to consent to being behind bars? Does he or she have to consent, to come out when guards tell them to come out? They're captives.
Yeah, they're captive. She doesn't, or he or she, a captive or a prisoner, doesn't have to have consent. Doesn't have to consent to get out of prison. Yes, of course, but you can't go into the prison cell and just rape that person. No, that's not a equivalency. It's not the same thing. So you're making it sound as if, since he's a captive, he's a slave, that means you don't have to have any consent from him to do anything you want with him. No, there are boundaries, right?
So asking if the captive can consent, this is like a meaningless question, and it really makes no sense.
Yes, because
being a captive is not a good, it's not a happy situation. It's not a good situation, but it's a necessary situation given the reality of war in the time of in the pre-modern period, before modern warplane,
Geneva Convention
and nuclear.
Yeah, before Geneva Convention. So basically, this is what we are saying too. Like, Geneva Convention and the laws we have right now are so much better than what Islamic law was at that time. I mean, that's our point too.
Weapons and carpet bombing. War prior to the modern period was required manpower. The side that had the biggest army was going to win in most cases. And
that is, now here's the beauty about Haqiqatjou. Now guess what he's gonna do? He's gonna just throw the bomb in, and look at the guy's Hamza's face.
So to have a bigger army, you need to be able to produce warriors to go and fight, and that requires wombs. So wombs are critical for the survival of your people, of your nation.
Wombs are critical, yes. So what do you do with the wombs? You impregnate them. So sex slavery was necessary. But look what he says.
So you can go read any book on pre-modern warfare, and they'll make this point that slavery and concubinage, you can use the word sex slavery, right-hand possession, concubines, they all mean the same thing.
Hamza's face. Look at Hamza's face. He's like, he's been spending 2 years saying, no, there's no such thing as sex slavery in Islam. There's no such thing. And here is Daniel just straight away is like, sex slavery, concubinage, slave, everything, right hand possesses, war captive is all the same thing. They're just like, oh man.
You are required to have them if you want to survive in the war context, because people
Look at Hamza's face. He's like, did he just say that? And everybody's like, okay.
are constantly attacking each other and attacking weaker, smaller groups in order to take their resources, kill them all, exterminate them. So if you don't want to be exterminated, when you go to war, you need to be able to take war captives, including concubines.
Including concubines. Perfect. Everywhere. Look at Hamza's face. He's like, he's like, I've been just literally telling everybody the opposite.
Okay, so I would take the answer as so the answer would be the
Beautiful. And the person, the caller, he just goes back to the point of his question. It's like, so basically you're saying you can have sex with your sex slave.
the consent is unnecessary, right?
It's not meaningful. It's like asking, does a prisoner in a jail have consent to stay behind bars?
Okay.
It's not the same thing. Anybody who listens to this can understand. Putting a prisoner behind bar is not the same as raping or having sex with the prisoner who's behind bar. I mean, anybody who has common sense understands that. So he's just trying to equate the two as if it's the same thing. Like, come on.
Okay.
I think you should look at the context of the surah. The surah is basically saying to stay away from unlawful sex.
Now look what Hashim says. And like, very interesting thing he's gonna say, and I want you to think about this a little bit.
That is basically what he's saying. So your wives and these captives of war, the ones that have been allocated to you. So it's not just like you go to the war and then you just pick any woman and then you have sex with her whenever you feel like. So there's a due process for this. So Allah is telling you to stay away from unlawful sex. Yes. So if you have sex with your wives and the captives of war who have been allocated for you, then it will not be adultery or fornication. And these people will find favor with Allah on the day of judgment.
So if you have sex with your wives and your sex slaves, these people will find favor from Allah in the day of judgment. Let that just sink in. The people who have sex with their wives and sex with their sex slaves will find favor in the sight of Allah in the day of judgment. Think about that.
Judgment. That's all he's saying.
I mean,
so
like
if you look at
if
let me
the
rewind
people
that a
who
little
live
bit.
in a
Maybe you
particular
missed it.
allocated for you, yes. So if you have sex with your wives and the captives of war who have been allocated for you, then it will not be adultery or fornication, and these people will find favor with Allah on the day of judgment. That's all he's saying.
I mean,
so
like
if you look at
if the people who live in a particular city that your country is at war with consent to being bombed and consent to being blown away with, look at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, look at the carpet bombing of Dresden, look at chemical warfare. And
again, the same technique. Look at that. This is called whataboutism. Okay. This is like, you are justifying what you're saying by saying, look at that. Yes, carpet bombing was wrong. We still say it's bad. It's wrong. Okay. And Vietnam, the thing that they did in Vietnam, throwing Agent Orange on the civilians, is wrong. Nobody says it's correct. We look at it and we agree that was a horrible thing to do. So why can't you say the same thing about the sex slavery in Islam, that it was a horrible thing to do? But no, the problem is you are justifying the sex slavery in Islam as a justified thing to do, but at the same time saying these things that the other people did are wrong.
In Vietnam, did the Vietnamese consent to Agent Orange being sprayed on the jungles of Vietnam, causing decades of birth defects? Did they consent to that? There's war.
Okay, I got it.
And also, okay, it's not compulsory. You need to understand that this taking of captives of war is up to the leader. Yes.
Beautiful, Hashim. Very good point.
So if they want to forego and we are not going to take any captives, or we're going to exchange our captives for their captives, yes, or a ransom. These are the other options also. So don't think that it's always like every war that the Muslims fight, they must have captives of war. This is not a necessary condition.
Okay, so it all depends on the
leader.
On commander.
Yeah, the leader. Whoever.
Yeah.
Is the Amir.
Yeah, it all depends on the commander, the Amir. What if you have an Amir like al-Baghdadi, right? Islamic State. If you get an Amir like Baghdadi, guess what happened? The Yazidi situation. That's exactly why the Yazidi situation happened, because it's up to the commander to decide what they want to do with the war captives or the sex slaves. So yes, you're right. And see what happened when you leave it up to the commander to decide what to do with a war captive. I mean, you guys are just shooting yourself in the foot by examples after examples.
Okay,
Yeah.
Just on the issue though of this consent thing, because it's exactly what Daniel said. This term consent in the 21st century is completely different to back in the day. Imam Shafi had something to say on this matter.
Now, for this, hats off to Daniel Haqiqatjou. I gotta give props where props are due. The problem with having a person like Haqiqatjou on the panel is that he's a live ticking time bomb. Like, he might blow up on your caller, or he might actually blow up on you. And that's one good thing about him, is like, he'll say it. He'll call you out on it, even if it is. So I'll give hats off to what he's about to do right now.
A quote. It says, if he has only one wife or an additional concubine with whom he has intercourse, he is commanded to fear Allah Almighty and not to harm her in regards to intercourse. Although nothing specific is obligated upon him, he is only obligated to provide what benefits her, such as financial maintenance, residence, clothing, and spending the night with her. As for intercourse, its position is one of pleasure, and no one can be forced into it. So that's what Imam Shafi's position. He said,
Now see, the other two are like quiet on it, right? And Hamza thinks like he just made a goal. He just made like a drop the mic argument that Imam Shafi said that it's okay, blah blah blah, XYZ. But guess what Daniel Haqiqatjou does? Like, right on the spot. Like,
as for intercourse, its position is one of pleasure, and no one can be forced into it. So that's what Imam Shafi's position. He said,
this is quote out of context, Hamza. I mean, I hate to.
Is it? Yeah, fair enough.
This is not like what you just said. Like, it makes it seem like Imam Shafi is saying that you have a concubine and she can eat and sleep and enjoy your house, and she's not obligated to do anything for you. And as long as she doesn't consent, then she can just sit there and enjoy your house and home and food and everything. This is not the Islamic view. I mean, we have to be
imagine if Haqiqatjou wasn't there. When Hamza would say this, nobody would object, and people will walk away thinking what Hamza just said just was a slam dunk argument. But Daniel Haqiqatjou is like, wait a second, Hamza, that's completely out of context, and that's not what it really means anyway. And he's like, fair enough.
very honest about what the rules and regulations are within our tradition. And
yeah, I said obligation on him, not her.
I know, exactly, obligation on him, but there's obligation on her as well.
Now listen to this.
Otherwise, it's just obligation. Who would want to just have another mouth to feed? That's not why no one would take a concubine then.
Look at the smile on his face. Like, so basically what he's saying is, hey, I feed you, so you better put out the concubine. Why would somebody take a concubine? That's the reason, is because he's feeding her, so he better get some, ding dong from her, basically. And look at the smile on his face. I mean, sometimes it's just disgusting the way they're like smug and they say things like that. I don't know. I feel creepy when I hear this, but I don't know about you guys, but I feel creepy. Look at this, how nicely he just says it.
Otherwise, it's just obligation. Who would want to just have another mouth to feed? That's not why no one would take a concubine then.
I'm sorry. It's just creepy the way he's just smiling and laughing about the fact that you're talking about a concubine, and since you're feeding her, she has to put out for you.
Understood. It's understood. This is the context of war. When you are defeated in war, whatever side you're on the Muslim side, you're on the non-Muslim side, two non-Muslim groups are fighting. This is how war proceeded. In fact, the women in certain battles would actually go to the battlefield from the cities. And
yeah, now here's interesting. All of the Hamza is like, the women used to dress up and come to the battlefield.
They're just waiting. Who's going to be the winning side? Because it's obvious what's going to happen.
Look what he says.
You're on the non-Muslim side, two non-Muslim groups are fighting. This is how war proceeded. In fact, the women in certain battles would actually go to the battlefield from the cities, and they're just waiting. Who's going to be the winning side? Because it's obvious what's going to happen next. You're going to be as women, you're going to go to whoever is the winning side, whether it's your side or
they used to wear their finest clothes.
They used to wear their finest clothes and come to the battlefield because they were just waiting for the the fight to end and see who wins, and they'll go with that tribe. Right? That's his statement. But look what happens.
Yeah, because that's understood about the nature of war.
Are you saying that during the time of the Prophet Muhammad, during the war time of Prophet Muhammad, are you saying that women and children, they normally will go to the battlefield?
Sometimes.
No, he's not saying that. He's not saying
that. No, look at Hamza. Like, oh no, he caught me out on this. Oh shoot. Oh my god, I like this guy. brought it right away. It's like, wait a second, are you saying the women used to go to the battlefield during time of the Prophet in that way? And now he's like, oh no, by the way, no, that's not what I meant. And Hamza is like, oh my God.
Concerned battles, not necessarily Muslim battles. I can't think of a specific example, but
Children, they normally will go to the battlefield.
sometimes.
No, he's not saying that. He's not saying that.
No, in certain battles, not
that.
necessarily Muslim battles. I can't think of a specific example, but in general, in battles at that time, prior to that time, afterwards, basically in pre-modernity, prior to modern warfare, battles were happening where two armies would meet. Okay, and sometimes they would just elect a champion to go and fight in the middle of whatever opening or clearing there was, and sometimes the champions would fight, and whoever won, that meant that side won the battle. That was one type of fighting that would occur. Other times, both sides would get at each other, kill each other, and usually the side that had the biggest army would win. Now, that's not always the case. Sometimes a more skilled, smaller army could overtake a larger army. But point remaining that numbers was critical. Having a bigger army was critical, and it was also understood that the winning side would take the women of the losing side. Winners would get the concubines. It was understood, and the obligations of what would come with that are also understood. Were also understood.
Okay. Thanks.
So trying to pin this as some kind of moral failing of Islam is a ridiculous argument. I have no problem saying that yes, in Islam there was concubinage.
Okay, I have no problem. I know you don't have a problem saying that, Daniel Haqiqatjou. The problem is Hamza and Sharif and all that, they have a problem saying that, and that's what they've been saying the whole time, that there's no such thing as sexual slavery in Islam. That's the problem.
I.e. possession of women, i.e. sex slavery in Islam, and that's sanctioned. It's clear in the verses that you cited. Surah Al-Mu'min.
Look at Hamza. He's like, oh my God, this is beautiful.
And elsewhere. It's called Milk Yamin. So this is a big discussion about like what is the meaning of slavery, what is the meaning of this and that. Fine, but the way to think about it very easily in a few words on a live stream is that this is a kind of weapon of war. This is something that you need to do in order to not be exterminated as a people. So it's morally, not only morally justified, it is morally necessary to take slaves, to take captives of war, and specifically female captives of war. This is a moral obligation. That's why no one has criticized in the pre-modern period these verses of the Quran. No one has criticized Islam. Christians weren't criticizing Islam. Jews weren't criticizing Islam. Oh, you guys are taking sex slaves. That's so barbaric. No one was criticizing Islam for this. Why? It's only the modern liberal West that criticizes Islam for this.
Nobody was criticizing Islam for doing that. Yes. You know why? Because before at that time, people didn't think this was wrong. You understand, right? We have advanced. We have evolved. Our morality has become better now, right? Nobody objected in the time of the Mayan civilization for cutting the people's head and throwing them down the stairs. Nobody objected at that time. They were like, yeah, that's fine. That was considered okay. I mean, in the time of the pharaohs, nobody objected for sacrificing virgins to the Nile. You know, it was perfectly fine because that was their morality at that time. So that's exactly the point. Our morality has become better. Now we have Geneva Convention. We have moved past the Stone Age mentality of that time. The problem is you are still glorifying the Stone Age mentality of that time and thinking of and romanticizing that time. That's the difference.
And Christians who have been liberalized and Jews who have been liberalized and have basically thrown away their books that also describe the same kind of rules of war.
Yes, they had the same type of things in their book. You know what happened? Reformation. They realized this sort of stuff is not good in their Bible, in the Torah, and they got over it. They're like, nobody glorifies that things in their Bible and in their books anymore. They're like, yeah, no, not a good thing. Only you guys do.
Those are the only people who are criticizing the Quran and Islam for this. Meanwhile, they are using all kinds of other weapons that are far more horrific, far more destructive than slavery, far more just terrifying than slavery and concubinage. So this is a hypocrisy.
And if you look at any civilization, you know, they all had slavery pre-industrial era.
This is interesting. He's going to mention something about slavery in Egypt. Just a side point, just based on latest research, the Egyptian pyramids were not built by slaves. They were built by workers, paid workers. And that's just the latest research.
You know, it was mainly man force. any work to be done, building the pyramids, building the Great Wall of China, all these great, which we call them great wonders of the world today, they were built by slaves, So this was a labor force at that time. You didn't have trucks and tractors and bulldozers and cranes at that point. So everyone had slaves. It's not like Islam had some sort of a monopoly. But what Islam did was it severely narrowed down the source of slavery. Before they could take anyone, before Islam, they could take anyone as a slave, a free man, a free woman, anyone. Islam narrowed it down to just the captives of war. Yes. And this is something that no civilization has done before.
Yeah.
And remember, these people wanted to kill you. So anyone who's feeling sorry for these captives of war, don't forget, if the Muslims were the ones who lost, they would be suffering a fate much worse than that. Yes, because
Yes, that's exactly right. If the Muslim laws, they would be suffering a fate worse than that, and that would have been really bad. And so was the situation bad when the Muslim took the slaves. So why you're glorifying one side but not condemning the other side?
because those people did not have any rights for the prisoners of war. Islam is the one which implemented these laws. Even the slaves had rights. So if I remember correctly, there's a hadith which says that if someone slaps a slave, they can be freed. Yes, and there are many passages in the
Yes, if somebody slaps a, you know what? I have narrations also. There's a narrations by the Prophet says, "Do not flog your wife like you flog your slave." That's also a narration. Okay, why don't you pick out that narration? There's a narration by I think Omar, or Uthman, I don't know which one, but he hit the one of the slaves because she tried to cover her chest, because the slaves were not required to cover their chest. Their boobs were sticking out, and she tried to cover it, and Umar or Uthman basically hit her, saying, "Don't cover your chest, don't cover yourself as if you're a free woman. You're not a free woman, you're a slave." So, I mean, you have these narrations also, but you're going to cherry pick the one or two narrations that actually, correspond to your claims.
in the hadith, there are many narrations in the hadith, how to gradually free the slaves. Not just capture them, but there are doing something to free a slave is supposed to be something rewarding. And this is something the companions practiced. So we have to take the whole picture into account. You can't just say living in the 21st century and then try to judge everything based on our era.
Sorry, guys, this is going a little bit too long, but this is interesting stuff. So I just wanted to cover
Something 1400 years ago. But like Brother Daniel said, it's something that was practiced. We do not deny that. And it's something that we have to look at it from today's standard as well. Like, I don't think of any wars today where the leaders say that, yes, we have to have captives of war. Maybe they have signed some treaties with all the countries not to have captives of war. I mean, that's another alternative. Like in Surah Muhammad, it says about ransoming this captives of war as well. So that's another option. So it's not just one-way street that you only have captives and sex slaves and that's it. And even these captives of war, their job wasn't just to have sex with you. Yes, they were used basically as labor as well.
Wow, what a great... Hey, they weren't only used for sex. You could just use them for it. But wait, there's more. You can use them in the kitchen. You can use them to plow your garden. You can use them to do cleaning or washing. So all in one. So sex slaves were not only used for sex, they were used for other things too. Excellent. Wow, great.
So they were used for work in the household, outside the house as well. Look at the picture holistically, rather than just in a very narrow-minded way.
Yeah, I was going to say, anybody who wants to see modern examples of what's being said here, there's a movie called Casualties of War, and it's Tom Cruise and Sean Penn, and it's about the comfort women in Vietnam, how the American soldiers used to go villages and used to take young women with them, and they would rape them along the way and then kill them. And basically, Tom Cruise, is it Tom Cruise or is it Michael J. Fox? I think it's Tom Cruise. And basically, is it Tom Cruise? Casualties of War. So basically, he wants to, no, it's Michael J. Fox, sorry, I think. And anyway, so he wants to report it to his superior officers that what they're doing out in the field. And I won't give any spoilers, but that's just an example.
So Hamza, was that a good thing? No, right? So that movie is about how horrible that situation was. So your examples shoot you in the foot. The example that you just gave of the movie, it's not glorifying how amazing and how it was necessary and that's what needed to be done and all that. No, it was pointing out at how horrible slavery or having sex with your captives is. So your examples kind of work against you.
Now, I don't hear any outcry about the American soldiers did in Vietnam to the women and such. You hear nothing. So the idea that you start stretching back here just shows you trouble causing, to be honest with you.
That's the typical phrase, you're trouble causing. So now he's basically gonna label him as trouble causing. So he doesn't want trouble on his channel. So he's like, no, this is a trouble causing because he asked a question which doesn't conform with the script that they go with.
All right, mate. Mr. Icky, are you done now?
I have actually two more questions.
I think you're done. What's your question?
I think you're done. So the first question kind of put them in such a defensive mode that he's like, no, you're done. He doesn't want to have any more questions from this guy. Okay, guys, now the part 2 starts. For the guys who are tired of listening to it, I mean, you can fast forward or whatever. Now, but basically what they're going to try to do is they're tired of being on the defensive. They're going to try to flip it because in the arena, they are not usually the ones answering. They're usually the one attacking. So now they're like, wait a second, no, don't let him ask another question. Let's flip it on him, put him on the defensive, and we'll just make him answer the questions so that we can take the focus off of this question about Islamic sex slavery and all that. So they're going to go into their regular routine of asking the other guy to justify his point and then attacking him instead of answering the question. So let's see what happens.
Before you go, I just wanted to ask you, do you follow any religion?
No, I don't follow any. Sorry. Actually, I have two more questions. Is it okay?
No, what's your religion?
See, he keeps asking, what's your religion? Because the minute he's going to say whatever religion, Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, whatever, now they got something, ammunition to fight, like jump on him. Like, oh, you're a Christian. Now they're going to just totally try to change the subject and be like, let's attack the Christian position, because that'll take away the focus from what the question he's asking. So that's the reason why he keeps asking. Everybody keeps asking him, what's your religion? Because there's a script they have and they have to follow that script. And if they don't get that initial answer, like, oh, you're a Christian? Okay, take that script. Let's go down this script.
I have no religion.
So what's your source of morality?
I believe there is a how to say. I believe there is a creator because I don't believe that the earth and all the universe will just form into by itself. So I believe there is a creator, but I'm not sure which one. So
Okay. Have you looked into Islam? Have you read the Quran?
Not really deeply. Some, yeah.
So I mean, let me ask you this question: if you
So there it is. There's a turn. So instead of having him ask the question, now they're gonna Dawah wise is gonna go into his script. He has a script. He's a Dawah person. He's going to go into his Dawah script. And the Dawah script is very simple. Do you believe in a creator? And the guy is going to say yes or no, whatever. The guy's like, oh, do you think somebody made us? And he's like, yeah. Oh, if somebody made us, wouldn't he want to give us instruction how to live our life? And I was like, yeah, okay. So if he gave the instruction that blah, 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 and step by step, that script, he's going to go down the script and he's going to get down to, as usual, the Pascal's wager. Wouldn't it make sense to believe in the God? What if you die? First, he's going to try to scare him with death. And then he's like, what if you die? Wouldn't it make sense to believe in a God as opposed to not believe in a God and all that? It's a regular script. And in the end, he's going to be like, come to Islam. That's the script that they go by. And that's what they do all the time.
believe in the creator, yes? Do you think the creator would just let you exist without any purpose? Or do you think there's a purpose that you have as during your existence?
I believe there is a purpose because it is quite ridiculous to think that something exists without purpose. I think there's a purpose.
No, alhamdulillah. So what do you think is that purpose? What is your purpose? What is the purpose of your existence?
I don't know. Honestly, I really don't know. But I do believe.
You must have given it some thought. Come on.
Sorry, what?
You must have given it a thought. You must have thought about it sometimes.
Maybe to please the creator, because normally people obtain something to for themselves purpose to please themselves. Maybe my existence is to please him.
No, that's very good actually. Yeah. So how would you know what pleases the creator?
I'm gonna forward it.
I'm sorry, because
how would you know? In order for the creator to be pleased, obviously, what are the do's and don'ts? So do's
yes.
meaning what will please him, and don'ts means what will displease him.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Where are you from, if you don't mind me asking?
What? Sorry.
Where are you from? Which country are you from?
I'm from Malaysia.
Oh, mashallah. So you're living amongst the Muslims.
Yeah, that's why I have Muslim friends. Yeah, so.
Alhamdulillah. Okay. You have ever read the Quran? I mean, you should read it, and I'm sure you have Muslim. We all are certain of one thing, that is death. So whether you believe in God, you disbelieve in God, you're an atheist, agnostic.
The typical scare him with death. Oh, death, oh, we all gonna die. Aren't you worried about what's gonna happen after we die? This typical scare tactic.
Whatever you are, everyone knows that one day we are going to die.
Okay.
Yeah. Now imagine a person who doesn't believe in God, and they believe that they're going to die one day, and then there is nothing after that. You just become dust, and that's it. That's the end of your existence. So if we all, let's say, for the sake of argument, believe that, and we all become dust, and there was nothing after life, then none of us have actually risked anything or had any have any problem. But if you look at the flip side, that God does exist, and afterlife does exist, then who's taking the bigger risk here?
Me.
Yeah.
Obviously. Okay.
So what you should do, my brother, is, like, do not take such a huge risk, because this life is temporary.
Yeah, don't take that risk. It's a Pascal wager. We can make a whole video on Pascal wager and how it doesn't make sense, but that's basically part of the script he's going to go with. And in the end, he's going to do the ABC, always be closing. Like in the end, come to Islam, read the Quran, and keep your mind open to Islam. That's what Dawah is all about. So out of all of them, at least he's doing the Dawah part.
And the afterlife is eternal. Yeah, it's got no end. So you really need to prepare for that life. And in order to do that, find the purpose of your life, find the purpose of existence. And you already said it correctly, to please the Creator. And that's exactly what Allah says in the Quran. Yes, that Allah has created you to worship. Worship means obedience to God. Sorry, you want to say something? Right. Yeah.
Yes. Actually, I'm in the process of searching, so I'm not really sure which one is. So I'm still searching. Actually, I have another question. I'm sorry, Mr. Hashim, because I have the question that I really want to know, but I'm not making any.
So he's gonna go back to the question. So they try to do like, okay, let's run the Dawah script. He ran the Dawah script. The guy didn't fall for it. He didn't go for it like, oh, okay, I'm gonna look for Islam. No, he'll go back to the question. I like the way he sticks to his questions, and they won't let him ask the question because the next question is more problematic than the first one.
Any judgment now. I just want to know about the I don't mean to be impolite. Okay, just want to learn.
Carry on. Yeah.
Okay, because when I read the hadith, I came across some hadith mentioned about the Prophet trading the slave. This hadith.
Look what happens to Hamza. All of a sudden, he's like, no, we're not gonna go down that road.
Saying that the Prophet trading.
Can I just stop you a second?
Because the minute they talk about the Prophet, because it is part of the hadith that the Prophet used to trade slaves. He had slaves. He traded one slave for 2 black slaves, and there's a whole bunch of narrations like that. So now, after the sex slavery, then they'll have to defend the Prophet buying and selling slaves. They don't want to go down that route. So see, Hamza is gonna just shut it down right away and try to change the subject and try to take it from a defensive position to attacking position. Let's just change it and attack him instead of answering his question.
Okay.
You're looking into Islam and you're obsessed with slavery. What's going on?
Because okay. I would just
What does it matter? What does it matter? How does that make Islam untrue, whether there were slaves or not?
Okay, I would just be honest, because every religion they teach about good things. They teach people to.
Come on, move it to Christianity. That's your strong point. Push him towards Christianity and then attack the Christian position. He's not even saying he's a Christian, but let's move the conversation to Christianity. That way you guys, since you got good experience beating up Christianity, you'll be better off over there.
To do good things, to treat people nicely, and then they say you will go to heaven. But so I think I already know all those good things. So
what
now
does
I want to
Christianity
know
say about slavery?
What sorry?
So he said slavery about Muhammad. It's like, what does Christianity say about slavery? Right away. Forget about Islam. Like, let's see what Christianity says about.
What does Christianity say about slavery?
Or Judaism.
Or Judaism?
Christianity actually, as what I've studied, Christianity allowed slavery in the Old Testament.
What?
Really?
What are you
You
talking
look at the
about?
New Testament.
New Testament, the New Testament.
It says, be obedient to your masters.
Okay, so I'm just gonna speed forward for the next couple of minutes, 3, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Basically, they're just gonna go over all the Bible says this, Bible says that, Bible says about slavery, XYZ. So they try to beat him up about the slavery in the Bible. So I'm not gonna bore you with that.
Why would it say be obedient to the master?
Teaching about love, love your enemy. So
According to one of his colleagues, he sends his slave back to him, practice of Christianity.
I just want to be, because I can explain it, because normally we will hate our enemy, right? We will.
The definition of an enemy in the historic Christianity.
So if you read Ephesians 6:5, it says, slaves, obey your Lord to Christ. So basically, they are
because Paul,
you know, passages like this probably propel the, and they made the slaves read these passages.
many Christian in the past they use it.
How can a slave master be basically shown this?
Because Paul, he was not the
Forget it, whether Paul wrote it or whoever wrote.
So they're going to their strong point, Paul, Christianity, and slavery in the Christian Bible and all that stuff. So good. They changed the whole point and they put him on the defensive, and they're on the offensive now. Now they're feeling much more confident because they're back to their script.
New Testament is God breathed and is used for teaching and every passage in the Bible is God.
Yes, but because the Bible teaches the enemy, that's why.
Stay with me. If it's about love your enemy. No, I
Okay.
don't want you to speculate. I don't want you to speculate. See, the thing is, you can't argue for Christianity if you don't know the Bible.
He said he's not a Christian. So why are you pushing him on Christianity?
And so if you don't know biblical beliefs, if you don't know the history of Christianity, you can't give me a defense that you make up. It's a historical fact from Paul himself. He sent the slave back to its master. Paul never abrogated slavery. The slave is not your enemy. It doesn't matter. So yeah, it doesn't work this way, friend.
And I'll give you another passage, good and gentle ones, in Titus 2:9. Nor. So you tell me,
Christian, mate.
passages in the Bible do not condone slavery, then I don't know what does.
So they're done with their Christian, but now they're done with him. They're going to just basically label him as a Christian and kick him out.
Are you a Christian, mate?
No, really, I'm not a Christian.
Sure.
For real. Sure, 100%.
Why not?
That's fine.
One second,
Maybe-
why not?
Maybe they didn't read these passages to him.
One second. Why not? Why aren't you Christian?
I have not really considered about Christian because I'm still learning. So I know about slavery in Christianity. I know about the
You don't know about slavery in
You ain't
Christianity.
got a clue about slavery in Christianity. You ain't got a clue.
Yeah, he said it's all in the Old Testament, but he probably did not read these passages in the New Testament, which I
I don't
quoted.
understand why he's not Christian. Why would
actually
you
the
go-
what sorry.
Why are you not Christian?
Why I'm not Christian? Because I have no religion. I was brought up in a family that has no religion.
No, I know, but you seem to be like looking at the Bible. Jesus is love.
So he's pissed off that he was a little bit critical about slavery by Muhammad, but when he asked about the Bible, he said, well, Bible preaches love. So that right away he got upset. Like, why did he say Bible preaches love? Since he said Bible preaches love, now he's going to label him as a Christian and just basically dismiss him.
Christianity is love. Why are you not in that loving religion?
Look at this.
You seem to be.
Because I have no religion. I was brought up in a family that has no religion.
No, I know, but you seem to be like looking at the Bible. Jesus is love. Christianity is love. Why are you not in that loving religion?
Because I also have some I also have a Christian friend around me, and then they always tell me that the Bible teach about love, and then I already read the verse
You're a
about
Christian,
the
mate.
love
I
of
don't care what you say. You're a Christian. You're blagging.
I'm not Christian.
You are. You're a Christian.
Boom. You're Christian, mate. I don't care what you say. And then they kick him off. Wow. So guys, in closing, this was very interesting. I mean, this is perfect. Like when you bring in Haqiqatjou, it's a blessing and a thorn in your side too, because he will tell you how it is. He is going to make good arguments, but at the same time, he's going to tell you exactly what Islam says. So poor, I feel bad for Hamza. Like for you, like so many streams, every time this thing comes up, and there's no sex slavery in Islam. There's no sex slavery in Islam. And here is Haqiqatjou is like, wait a second. Sex slavery, concubinage, prisoner of war, all the same thing. It's sanctioned by the Quran. He literally gives you the ayah and says it's sanctioned by the Quran. Oh man, that's too bad. All right, guys. If you have any comments sorry about the long video, but I thought this was interesting conversation that they had, and I had to do a reaction on it. All right, guys. Take care. Leave in the comment what do you think about this and what points you got out of it. Did you think it's productive to make a reaction video like this or not? All right. Thanks. Bye.